What's going on, guys? It's your boy MurderInc here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today we're talking about the clan boss, specifically Urogrim in the clan boss. We just had a 2x event, tons of people have him. You're going to be wondering, how can I use this guy to max potential in the clan boss? And there's a few really interesting things that I do want to talk about here. Some of those things being, can I get away without using lifesteal on this champion? Are there any downsides to this champion's kind of cautionary things I should be looking out for when building him? What types of teams he's going to do well in? So I'm going to be answering all of those questions for you guys today. So first, let us talk about the team that I picked to use him in. As we can see on the screen, we do have Iron Brago, Razin Scarhide, Skull Crusher. I didn't want to use shields because that defeats the purpose of knowing whether or not lifesteal is viable. Urogrim, of course, and Coffin Smasher, because honestly, he was just on the screen in my kind of field of vision, and I said, why not? Did I do a disservice by using him? Probably, since I have no aura on this team, as you can already imagine here, because we do want it speed tuned, and we do not want to use Urogrim's aura there. So these are the champions I used. I built this team as tanky as possible so I can get the most amount of turns in that I could find to really see how long the team can last without any type of lifesteal gear, and kind of the importance Urogrim plays outside of a insane, and I mean insane, poisoner. So going through the AI really quick, just to kind of give you a rundown on the gear I used. First, with Iron Brago, we have 40,000 health, 6.7 thousand defense, 193 speed, 68 crit rate. Now pause, everyone calm down. This is going to be the only time you're ever going to see me not use 100% crit rate. So for the haters out there, definitely clip this part, do whatever you can, but don't include the next part where I say never ever copy stats like you're currently seeing on the screen. As I mentioned a little while ago, this was purely to do maximum survivability so I can make sure I have the largest sample size of amount of turns possible. If I really wanted to min-max this, everyone would be 100% crit rate, and crit damage would be at a respectable level as well. So with that being said, let's move on to the next champion, Razin Scarhide, at 48,000 health, 4,700 defense, 201 speed, 99 crit rate, 156 crit damage, and 259 accuracy. Moving on once again to the one, the only Skull Crusher, the People's Champion. We have 82,000 health here. Let's think about that. How we build our ally protection champions with no shields. You want high health because it's an amazing defensive layer on top of what he already has. 4,500 defense, 191 speed, making him the slowest. Low crit rate, low crit damage, low accuracy resistance. So one thing to note here is going to be, usually when you're using a Skull Crusher, you have him crit capped with a little bit of damage, so he's self-sustaining through lifesteal gear, and it really comes down to gambling for War Master procs with lifesteal to make sure he is full healing. So we're going to see if Urogrim is the man for the job to get rid of that altogether, taking a lot of strain off of the Skull Crusher. Moving on to Urogrim himself, we have 55,000 health, 5.2 thousand speed, 201 speed, and if you remember, that's the same as Razin, but this guy's base speed is higher, and I'm going to show you exactly why you want him to go first in every team, and 273 accuracy. Moving on to the final piece of the puzzle here, we do in fact have Coffin Smasher. He's at 51,900 health, 4,300 defense, 196 speed, no crit rate, no crit damage, and finally 251 accuracy. So all of these things together, you kind of got a glimpse of the AI that I'm using because I found that works best here. So let's go over what we're going to see here in one moment as we do in fact start the key. Alright, now that we have the key start, we want the cleanse to be first, defense down and weaken from Razin, attack down there. We don't want to use increased defense yet because it will fall off, or the slam, which you never want, so that's why I elected to use it too. Pretty much this team is just going to see how this all synergizes, and one thing to note, this is completely in full auto from the start here. That is because all of the speeds are above 190. If you have them slower, you're going to have to manual until the third round to make sure the cleanse is set up properly, because you will be holding it that entire time. By making them all faster than 190 speed, they go in front of the clan boss using all of the skills they would have used after that slam here. And for Urogrim, as we can see right there from that cleanse, he is going to cleanse on cue each and every single time. Now, while the cleanse itself is really good, we also have this incredible heal that happens, and as we all know, most likely scenario for a team wiping is the stun slam target dying, because he takes more damage than anyone else on the team, and it's the hardest for him to heal back up. So what this does is Urogrim cleanses him, gives him a nice heal to kind of complement all the things here. But one thing I want you guys to notice right now is the debuffs here. And this is a typical, as basic as it gets, going all the way down to our roots here. Counter-attack team with Skull Crusher. We're on a 1-to-1 ratio. No one's going fast, no one's going slow. Pretty straightforward speed tune, 190 speed to 204 speed, making sure all of the cooldowns synergize properly. Now, one thing you're going to notice is how close your Urogrim gets if he does not resist anything to filling up this turn meter bar. Now, despite no one having a lot of accuracy and the fact that I turned off the HP burn from Coffin Smasher, had that been turned on, if Skull Crusher gets lucky, it is in fact possible for attack down to be overwritten by the poisons, which will cause an instant wipe for your team. Murder, what's your point? Why are you saying this? I am saying this because of how popular 2-to-1 ratio teams in fact are. If anyone has ever ran someone like a Dracomorph in a 2-to-1 ratio team, you're going to understand right away what I'm talking about here. He has a very high chance of placing that defense down, weaken his 4 poisons. If he does it quick enough in a 2-to-1 ratio team, you're going to have no room for an attack down if it gets resisted just once. I recall making these teams with Mashald and Seeker a long time ago, and it was an absolute nightmare to get so far into the run for me personally, trying to break a world record. Then all of a sudden Draco decides to go sicko mode over here, and he just starts popping out poisons. Attack down does in fact get resisted, and now you're on turn 70 something without an attack down. Guaranteed wipe. I don't care how big the shields you have are, it's just a terrible thing to see. So one huge word of caution: if you're using your Urogrim in a 2-to-1 ratio team where he would fit brilliantly with a 3-turn cooldown on that cleanse, make sure you're smart with your setup for how you place your attack down champion. It's all going to come down to that. If you can ensure that your debuff chance of placing is high enough to make sure that you're never dropping that debuff, this guy is a home run. He's a poison beast, no doubt about it. And as you're going to see here, we're only on turn 16. I am going to fast forward the video just a little bit here so you can see what it ramps up to, but this guy is a poison machine. He just puts up so much poisons, and no one as of yet, turn 16, not too early but also not too late into the run. Yes, I am pretty tanky here, but no one's really suffering to get topped off. Alright, so now that we are a little bit further, as we can see, we just hit turn 31. We're doing 26.1 million damage, so pretty decent so far. Like I said, this team is not min-maxed at all. If I crit capped everyone, the damage would be significantly higher. I also made a really funny mistake with Masteries here on one of the champions that I'm not so comfortable with using. I'm really not sure why he had an incorrect mastery to begin with, but we'll go over that when I talk about the Masteries in case you care about that kind of stuff. So as we can see here, 27 million damage, slowly ramping, turn 32, and surprisingly, these champions are getting decently topped off without any lifesteal gear. So this opens up a whole new world of things you can do. This is going to help out players who I want to say are early game, mid game, just entering that end game level, because this is definitely the most common team for someone in that scenario, unless you just enjoy the nitty gritty full defensive teams like we do see here today. So this is where it gets a little bit scary. Now, one thing I do want to point out is I think I'm wearing Stalwart here on everybody but Urogrim. So he's going to end up taking more damage, and eventually he's going to steal the threat generated from the clan boss to make the stun start hitting him instead. As we just saw there, he had like literally 1 health, which is kind of crazy to see. And he eventually is going to die because of that. So this guy's going to be good without lifesteal. If you can take advantage of something like a decreased crit rate buff, it's much better if everyone is hit equally going all the way to the end, because his heals are indeed very strong. So with that being said, let's go ahead, move on to the end of this team here, as we are getting to round 38, which is definitely impressive with no kind of shield. We do have Iron Brago's passive here. We do have a Skull Crusher who has ally protection. All of these champions built properly. Of course, I'm using very strong gear here. This is going to be a 2 keys, so let's go ahead and shift all the way to the end here. Alright, perfect. So as you can see, 10 minutes, 23 seconds, Ultra Nightmare, 35.8 million damage, 8.1 million from Iron Brago, 10 million from Razin, 2 million from Skull Crusher, 11.4 million from Urogrim, and 3.8 from Coffin Smasher. So we were just above that 2 key threshold, but like I said, Coffin Smasher, as you're going to see, is actually using War Master, and I disabled his A2, so he only has an A1 hitting 3 times. His damage should be significantly higher with Giant Slayer, but it is what it is. And one interesting thing to note, defense stacking Razin without an impressive amount of crit damage. He wasn't even crit capped, I believe he was at 99% here, so he was kind of close enough, but he's only a million damage behind someone like Urogrim because of how light Urogrim's hits are. A lot of poisoners have the added advantage of being able to put out a decent amount of raw damage. Urogrim unfortunately does not do pretty much any raw damage, and one of his main sources of poison doesn't even hit the target, so he cannot proc any type of mastery skill. That's one thing to keep in mind that I'm pretty sure a lot of people kind of looked over it, said, he's an insane poisoner, what more could I want? What would have been cool is if he had an AoE hit, which would have increased his damage significantly. It does look a little bit low here, don't be too concerned. As I did mention, even though Razin isn't really in crazy gear, I've shown Razin doing a 1 key and non-unkillable 100 million damage months and months and months ago all by himself, without even using so much as a toxic set, because Razin's raw damage paired with his Giant Slayer is simply out of this world and can really outdo most poisoners in this game. So with that being said, I'm just going to briefly show you guys the masteries as I'm finishing up my kind of final statements here. You're going to see everything is pretty typical as far as the masteries go. We're going to always go War Master or Giant Slayer where it does in fact apply, unless you're for some reason me and decide to use a Coffin Smasher with War Master, which makes absolutely no sense. But overall, I'm pretty sure I was correct in saying everyone does have stalwart gear except for Urogrim, which is why he was picked to die first. Outside of that, everything else is rather straightforward. Alright guys, that is going to conclude my video today on the awesome, incredible clan boss champion Urogrim. Let me know what you guys think. It's been such a long time since I've actually been able to use Skull Crusher in a team composition like this. Lots of people use Martyr, lots of people use Valkyrie. They are definitely extremely OP with an aura, defense down, attack down, all of that good stuff. It was really nice to use Skull Crusher again for the first time. I haven't built an ally protection champion like Skull Crusher since we kind of figured out the crit damage thing, and when you build him properly like I just showed you, he can survive an insane amount of rounds even without a defense aura like I just showed everyone here today. Alright guys, don't forget, if you enjoy this content, like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss my next video, and I will see you all in the next upload.